Listen to me carefully. There is someone watching this video right now who feels tired in a way sleep cannot fix. You smile in front of people. You say, "I'm fine." But deep inside, something hurts. You tried. You really tried. And when life didn't work out, people didn't notice your pain, they just said, "Be strong." But tonight, you don't need to be strong. Tonight, you need to remember who you are. This is not just a story. This is your story. So don't skip. Don't scroll. Stay with me because what you hear next might be exactly what your soul has been waiting for. The silent pain. Listen. Before this story begins, I need you to do one thing. Take a deep breath. Because this part is not entertainment. This part is recognition. Someone watching this right now is carrying a pain they never talk about. Not because they don't feel it, but because they don't know who would understand. You wake up every day and do what needs to be done. You smile. You act normal. But inside there is a quiet tiredness. A tiredness that coffee cannot fix. A tiredness that sleep does not heal. And the scariest part, no one notices. People see your strength, but not your struggle. They see your results, but not your tears. And slowly, silently, you start asking yourself, if I disappear for a day, would anyone even feel it? There was a person just like you. Not famous, not rich, not special in the world's eyes. But inside them lived a heart that wanted more. More meaning. More peace. More purpose. They believed if they stayed honest, if they worked hard, if they did the right thing, life would eventually make sense. But life had other plans. At first, the problems came slowly. Small disappointments, missed opportunities, unanswered prayers. They told themselves, "It's okay, this is normal, stay patient." But patience started turning into waiting. Waiting turned into confusion. Confusion turned into pain. And pain started turning into silence. The nights became heavier. Lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, mind racing with questions. Why is everyone moving ahead except me? Why does my effort feel invisible? Am I doing something wrong, or am I just not enough? They wanted to talk to someone. Anyone. But every time they tried, the words got stuck. Because how do you explain a pain that has no name? So they stayed quiet. Strong on the outside. Broken on the inside. Days passed. People laughed around them. Life moved forward. But they felt stuck. Like they were watching the world through a glass wall. Close but not included. And slowly, something dangerous started happening. They stopped dreaming. Not because they didn't want to, but because dreaming started hurting too much. Hope became risky. Expectation became painful. So they lowered their standards. They told themselves, maybe this is all life is meant to be. In that thought was more painful than failure. Because failure hurts the body. But hopelessness kills the soul. One night something broke inside them. Not in a dramatic way. No screaming. No tears. Just a quiet realization. I'm tired of being strong. They sat alone, surrounded by silence, and for the first time admitted the truth. I don't know how much longer I can do this. This wasn't weakness. This was honesty. And honesty is always the beginning of change. Even when it doesn't feel like it. But listen carefully. This is important. When life is silent. When answers don't come. When doors stay closed. That does not mean you are forgot. Sometimes silence is not absence. Sometimes it is preparation. But they didn't know that yet. All they knew was pain. And pain has a way of whispering lies. Give up. Stop trying. You're wasting your time. And those lies sound convincing. When you're exhausted. This was the moment. The moment where most stories end. Because most people quit here. Not at the beginning. Not when it's hard. But when it feels pointless. And the question was simple. Will they stop? Or will they survive one more day, the lowest point, where most people give up? There is a moment in every human life that nobody prepares you for. A moment where you don't feel strong anymore. But you're not ready to give up either. You're just empty. That was where they were now. Not sad enough to cry. Not hopeful enough to dream. Just surviving. Every morning felt heavier than the last. Getting out of bed wasn't motivation, it was obligation. They didn't wake up excited. They woke up because sleep eventually ends. And as they washed their face, they avoided their own reflection. Because the eyes looking back at them asked a painful question. How long are you going to live like this? People around them had no idea. They laughed in front of others. They helped everyone else. They listened to everyone's problems. But no one asked about theirs. And that's the cruel irony of being strong. People assume you don't need help. So they carried everything alone. Slowly, life began taking things away. Not all at once, but one by one. Confidence, energy, belief. Every failure felt personal. Every delay felt intentional. They started replaying their past in their mind. If only I had chosen differently. If only I had been smarter. If only I was more talented. And self-blame is dangerous. Because when you attack yourself long enough, you start believing the lies. Then came the night. The night where everything felt too heavy. They sat alone, phone in hand, scrolling endlessly. Watching other people live the life they once imagined. Smiles, success, celebrations, and comparison did what it always does. It made them feel small, invisible, replaceable. And that's when the thought appeared. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and calm. What's the point of trying anymore? That thought is not anger. That thought is exhaustion. And exhaustion makes quitting feel reasonable. They questioned everything. Their effort, their faith, their purpose. They even questioned God. If you see me, why does it feel like you're silent? No thunder. No voice. Just stillness. And silence can be terrifying. When you're already breaking. Tears finally came. Not the kind that brings relief. The kind that leaves you numb. They didn't want to die. They just didn't want to feel this pain anymore. And there is a difference. A big difference. They imagined what life would be like if they stopped caring. No more expectations. No more disappointment. Just existing. And that scared them. Because deep inside they knew. If they stopped caring, they would stop living. This was the edge. Not of life, but of hope. This was the place where dreams quietly disappear. No goodbyes. No announcements. Just slow surrender. But something unexpected happened. In the middle of the darkness, a memory surfaced. A younger version of themselves. A version that believed. A version that dreamed without fear. A version that promised, no matter what happens, I won't give up. And for the first time in a long time, they felt ashamed. Not because they failed, but because they were about to quit. They whispered softly, I don't know how to fix my life, but I know I don't want to end it like this. That sentence changed everything. Not instantly, not magically, but it created space. Space between pain and decision. And in that space, truth entered. A quiet truth. This pain is not the end of your story. Because endings feel final. But this fell unfinished. And unfinished stories still have power. They realized something important. They didn't need to be fearless. They didn't need to be confident. They just needed to stay. One more night. One more morning. One more step. Survival became victory. And that decision, that tiny invisible decision, is where the story turns. Not because life got easier, but because they refused to disappear. If you're watching this and thinking, this feels like me, then listen carefully. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are not broken for questioning life. You are human. And humans are allowed to rest. But not to give up on themselves. The turning point, a decision made in silence. Nothing changed overnight. No miracle. No sudden success. No message saying everything will be okay. The problems were still there the next morning. Same worries. Same uncertainty. Same unanswered questions. But something was different. Not outside. Inside. They woke up without motivation. But they woke up anyway. They didn't feel brave. They didn't feel inspired. They just remembered one thought from the night before. I'm still here. And that was enough. This is something nobody talks about. Turning points are not loud moments. They don't come with applause or background music. Most turning points happen in silence. When no one is watching. When it's just you. And the choice to quit or continue. They made a decision that morning. Not a big one. Just a small promise. Today I will do one thing right. Not 10 things. Not everything. Just one. And they did it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't impressive. But it was honest. And something strange happened. Doing one small thing created movement. Movement created energy. Energy created belief. Not strong belief. But enough. Enough to say, maybe I can survive today too. Days passed. Still no major changes. But they stopped waiting to feel ready. They learned something important. Feelings come after action, not before. So they showed up tired. They showed up afraid. They showed up unsure. And they showed up anyway. There were days they failed again. Days they felt weak. Days old doubts returned. But now, they didn't let those days define them. They learned to say, "This is a bad day, not a bad life." That thought alone saved them more times than they could count. They stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And started asking, "What is this teaching me?" Pain slowly changed shape. It stopped being an enemy. It became a teacher. They noticed small changes. They slept a little better. They thought a little clearer. They reacted less emotionally. And most importantly, they stopped hating themselves. Because healing doesn't begin when life improves. It begins when self-attack ends. There were still moments of loneliness. Still nights of doubt. But now when the voice whispered, "Give up," another voice replied, "Not today." And sometimes, "Not today" is the bravest thing you can say. They didn't tell anyone about this inner change. There was no need. This wasn't for the world. This was for survival. And slowly, almost invisibly, strength returned. Not loud strength. Quiet strength. The kind that keeps going. Even when no one claps. They realized something powerful. Rock bottom isn't where life ends. It's where the foundation is built. Because when you have nothing left to lose, you finally become free. Free to rebuild. Free to try again. Free to become something new. If you're listening to this and thinking, "I don't feel strong enough yet," listen carefully. You don't need to be strong to start. You need to start to become strong. The decision they made wasn't heroic. It was human. But that decision changed the direction of their life. Not instantly, but permanently. And now, the world was about to respond. Not all at once, but step by step. Because when you move, life moves too. Pain with purpose, the hidden growth. For a long time, they believed pain was proof that something was wrong. That if life hurt this much, they must be failing. But they were about to learn a truth few people ever accept. Pain is not always a sign of defeat. Sometimes it's a sign of growth. Nothing around them changed dramatically. No sudden money. No overnight success. No applause from the world. But inside, they were changing. And inner change is invisible. Until one day it is. They started noticing patterns. Every time they were close to giving up, life had been shaping them for something bigger. Every delay forced patience. Every rejection forced humility. Every lonely night forced self-reflection. Pain was doing work they didn't ask for, but desperately needed. They realized something important. If everything had gone smoothly, they would have stayed the same. Comfort would have kept them small. So life shook them. Not to destroy them, but to wake them up. They began listening more. To their thoughts. To their habits. To their fears. They stopped running from discomfort. And started asking, "Why does this hurt?" And the answers weren't easy. Sometimes the pain pointed to people they needed to let go of. Sometimes it revealed dreams that were no longer theirs. Sometimes it showed wounds they had ignored for years. Healing required honesty. And honesty is painful. They learned to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. No distractions. No pretending. Just truth. And in that quiet truth, Strength was being built. There were days they felt like they were going backwards. Days where sadness returned. Days where motivation disappeared. But now they understood something crucial. Healing is not linear. You don't rise every day. Some days you rest. Some days you fall. Some days you crawl. And all of it counts. They stopped comparing their journey to others. Comparison had robbed them long enough. They realized everyone is fighting a battle you can't see. And social media only shows highlights, never the scars. So they focused on their own lane. One step, one decision, one day at a time. Slowly, they became stronger in ways that didn't show immediately. They became calmer under pressure. They reacted less to negativity. They trusted themselves more. They stopped needing validation from people who never understood their struggle. Because when you survive darkness, you stop begging for light from others. Their pain created empathy. They listened better. They judged less. They understood suffering without words. They didn't just become stronger. They became deeper. And one day, something unexpected happened. They looked back at the person they were months ago and barely recognized them. Not because they were successful yet, but because they were no longer broken in the same way. The pain had changed them. It didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling them. They realized this season wasn't about achievement. It was about preparation. Life was strengthening their roots before allowing them to rise. Because anything that grows fast without roots falls just as fast. If you're in a season where nothing makes sense, where effort feels invisible, where progress feels slow, listen carefully. You are not stuck. You are being built. Pain with purpose is the kind that shapes leaders, the kind that creates wisdom, the kind that prepares you for responsibility you don't yet see. And soon, very soon, the growth happening inside will begin showing on the outside, the first signs of change when life starts responding. For a long time, it felt like effort went nowhere. Like pouring energy into the ground and getting nothing back. But what they didn't realize was this. Seeds grow in silence. One day something small happened. So small most people would have ignored it. A conversation. A message. A chance that didn't look impressive. Old them would have dismissed it. But this time, they paid attention. Because pain had sharpened their awareness. They said yes. Not because they were confident, but because they were ready to try. And that yes was the beginning of change. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became responsive. Effort finally echoed back. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to say, you're on the right path. They noticed momentum. Small wins. Quiet progress. They started finishing what they began. They showed up more consistently. And consistency is powerful. Because consistency beats motivation. Every single time. There were setbacks. Of course there were. But setbacks didn't feel like the end anymore. They felt like adjustments. Instead of saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" they asked, "What can I learn from this?" That question alone changed everything. They felt hope again. Carefully. Cautiously. Hope still scared them. But they didn't run from it anymore. They held it gently. Like something fragile. But valuable. And slowly something inside healed. Their self-respect returned. They trusted themselves again. Not because they had proof of success, but because they had proof of resilience. Other people started noticing. Not because they announced anything, but because energy changes are visible. They walked differently. Spoke differently. Listened differently. Confidence returned. Not arrogance. Calm confidence. They realized. This wasn't luck. This was alignment. Life responds when you do. And then came a moment. A moment that confirmed everything. A door opened. They thought it closed forever. Not the biggest door, but the right one. They paused. Took a breath. And for the first time in a long time, they smiled without forcing it. Pause. Let music swell softly. If you're watching this and thinking, when will my moment come? Listen carefully. Moments come to those who stay ready. Not to those who rush. The nights of doubt weren't wasted. The tears weren't useless. The waiting wasn't punishment. It was training. They understood something now. Life doesn't test you to break you. Life tests you to see who you become under pressure. And they were becoming someone stronger. Someone wiser. Someone who could handle what was coming next. Because this was only the beginning. The rise, becoming who the pain prepared you to be, they didn't wake up one day feeling successful. They woke up feeling steady. And that mattered more. Because steadiness means you don't fall apart. Every time life shakes you, things started working. Not perfectly, but consistently. Effort now created results. Results created belief. Belief created momentum. And momentum is dangerous. In the best way. They stopped doubting every step. They trusted the process, even when the outcome wasn't clear. Because pain had taught them patience. And patience is power. Opportunities came. Some small. Some unexpected. They didn't chase everything anymore. They chose carefully. Because suffering had refined their priorities. They no longer wanted fast success. They wanted lasting growth. People noticed. The same people who once ignored them now asked questions. How did you stay so calm? How did you not give up? They smiled quietly. Because explaining survival to someone who hasn't lived it is almost impossible. They knew the truth. This strength was earned. Paid for with lonely nights. Self-doubt. Silent battles. Nothing about it was accidental. Their past no longer embarrassed them. It empowered them. They didn't hide their scars. They respected them. Because scars mean you lived. And you survived. They became someone others leaned on. Not because they had all the answers, but because they understood pain. And understanding creates trust. There were moments of pride, but no arrogance. Because falling once teaches you humility forever. They stayed grounded. Grateful. Focused. They realized something profound. The version of themselves that almost quit is the reason this version exists. Without the pain, there would be no strength. If you're listening and thinking, I want to become that person, listen closely. You don't become strong by wishing. You become strong by enduring. The rise isn't loud. It's stable. It's built on discipline, not emotion. And that kind of rise lasts. They weren't chasing validation anymore. They were building legacy. Not for applause, but for peace. And as they stood taller in life, they never forgot where they came from. Because remembering your darkness keeps your light honest. This wasn't the end of the story, but it was proof. They were no longer broken. They were rebuilt. The message for the one who is still struggling: this part of the story is not about them anymore. This part is about you. Because somewhere right now, someone is listening with a heavy heart, pretending to be okay, carrying pain they never show, fighting battles nobody claps for. You wake up every day and do what you must. You handle responsibilities. You stay quiet. You survive. And people think that means you're fine. But inside, you feel tired in a way words cannot explain. You've asked yourself questions you never thought you would ask. You've doubted yourself in moments when you needed belief the most. You've wondered if your effort even matters. Let me tell you something clearly. It does. Even when no one sees it. Even when results are slow. Even when life feels unfair. Your effort matters. The fact that you are still here, still trying, still listening, still hopping even a little, that alone means something powerful is alive inside you. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are not broken for feeling lost. You are not failing because life is taking time. You are human. And humans are not meant to be perfect. They are meant to grow. Right now you might feel like you're behind. Like everyone else has moved ahead. Like your time is running out. But listen carefully. Life is not a race. It is a process. And the people who grow slowly often grow strongest. Every tear you cried quietly built strength. Every night you survived built character. Every time you wanted to quit but didn't, that changed you. You may not see it yet, but others will. And more importantly, you will. There will come a day when this season makes sense. when the pain connects into purpose, when the waiting turns into wisdom. And on that day, you won't say, I'm lucky. You'll say, I didn't give up. If life feels heavy right now, don't ask yourself to be fearless. Just ask yourself to stay. Stay one more day. Stay one more step. Stay one more decision. That is how strength is built. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to be confident. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep moving forward, even slowly. Especially slowly. Because slow movement forward still beats standing still in fear. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are not late. You are becoming. And becoming takes time. One day, someone will hear your story and find strength in it. One day, your survival will inspire someone else to stay alive. One day, you'll realize that what almost broke you actually shaped you. Until that day comes, hold on. Rest if you must. Cry if you need to. Pause if you're tired. But don't quit on yourself. You've already survived too much to stop now. The final reminder, you did not come this far to stop. If you're still listening right now, this message is not random. People don't reach the end of something like this by accident. They reach it because something inside them refuses to disappear. And that matters. You have been tested in ways people will never understand. You carried responsibilities when you were still learning who you were. You stayed silent when screaming felt easier. And still you're here. That alone makes you stronger than you realize. Life didn't break you. It tried. But you're still standing. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not confidently. But standing. And that is enough. There will be moments ahead when doubt returns. When progress feels slow. When old fears try to convince you nothing has changed. When that happens, remember this moment. Remember how far you've already come. Remember the nights you survived. Remember the strength you built when nobody was watching. You don't need approval from the world. You don't need validation from people who never walked your path. You only need to keep your promise to yourself. The promise to stay. The promise to try. The promise to rise even if it takes time. Your story is not behind you. It is unfolding. And the next chapter will be written by the choices you make after this moment. Choose patience over panic. Choose discipline over fear. Choose progress over perfection. And most of all, choose yourself. One day, you will look back at this season and understand why it had to be hard. You will see how pain shaped your strength. How waiting built your wisdom. How survival turned into purpose. And when that day comes, you won't regret staying. You will be grateful you didn't quit. So take a breath. Stand tall. And keep moving forward. Because you did not come this far to stop now. Red end.